Hi, Vani.
Hi, Shruti. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I'm doing good.
Thank you for joining us after a long day at office.
Of course, anytime.
So, you've secured a seat with the ISB YLP. Tell us about your education background and your professional background as well.
Sure. So I completed my undergrad from NMIMS. I did a bachelor's in economics. Along with my economics background, I did a lot of internships. I did internships in startups because that was the space that interested me the most. So I interned in two startups. One is Urban Company and one is Fable Street. Urban Company, I'm sure, is a more popular name, but Fable Street is a booming women's wear startup, which is, of course, doing very well now. More than my college, my extracurriculars added a lot of value. So I took up a lot of leadership positions in college that I feel made me stand out. Currently, I'm working in EY in the risk consulting department. So I'm an analyst in the regulatory compliance department. And I look after compliance for banks and the banking and capital market sector in general. So that's my background. YLP came into picture in college. I knew that I want to go into consulting quite early on, and I think my extracurriculars really added value in making me understand that this is what I want to do. Problem solving is something that I like to do. Consulting is the way to go. And I knew that MBA was the answer. So the YLP stood out because, of course, we know that CAT is very competitive and universities abroad also have their own pros and cons. So I thought that, I would have nothing to lose if I applied for the YLP. And honestly, I just applied the first round on a whim. And I got through. And when I got through, I realized that maybe I really do have a chance at this. So I decided to focus on it full time. And yeah, it bore fruit.
So, YLP is a very long process. How did you, remain focused through stage one, through stage two, and then the interview, and then the result? It almost takes a year, for you to get to the final outcome. So, what are the things that are important for staying focused?
Very honestly, Shruti, it was a very long and painstaking process. I had a lot of friends who started applying to YLP with me. And I think I was the only person who actually stuck through it in the end. So what you said is very true. A lot of people do lose focus. But I knew that it's either this or nothing because there's no other better opportunity I can get at this age to get my MBA sorted. What I wanted was the freedom to explore careers, with the security and the comfort that I have an MBA admit in my head. And I know, like when I wake up now, I know that I have an MBA admit and it's the most relieving feeling ever, which is what I was chasing for the whole time. The initial application stages in stage one, I just gave it on a whim, like I mentioned. But post stage two was really what tested me, my GMAT preparation and the essay and everything. And it was a very stressful process, especially considering I had a very academically rigorous course. And like I mentioned, the various extracurriculars I was taking. So I think that took the most toll on me. The interview prep honestly went by pretty smoothly thanks to you. So that I would definitely say was something that I knew was taken care of. But yeah, I think stage two is where most people lose focus because that's the most gap between. So that's December is when you get your result. And then between December and August is a long, long time for you to lose focus or just give up. So I think that's where you really need to, buck in and decide that this is what you want to do.
And coming from stage one to stage two, actually a lot of people, the way you mentioned, they lose focus and they'll not probably land up in the stage two, or they might not have the requisite scores. So, with so many things happening at college, you have your terms, you have your placements, you have so many things to manage over there. How did you and when did you start with your GMAT prep? What is a good strategy for that?
My story is very, I really don't think mine is the ideal benchmark here. But so I got placed in December, which is also when I got my YLP stage one admit. That I knew that I had crossed stage one. So placements was out of the way. I was the vice president of the Fine Arts Society and I had a lot of ideas what I wanted to do there. So I had to keep my GPA up for the admit process as well. So I enrolled for GMAT coaching in December. But I was sincere with the preparation in the very start because I had to manage a lot of things at once. So I kept studying intermittently. I had live classes, so I used to attend those classes, but I don't think I did a very good job there. I think I sincerely started studying in May. What I studied intermittently definitely helped. But when my college got over, I did like maybe 6 to 8 hours of prep daily minimum, and I used to give mocks. And of course, my GMAT story is also entirely different things. I had to give 3 attempts. My prep strategy was like pretty messed up at the beginning. I would not recommend anyone to do that because I was all over the place. But what I would say is to focus on the basics. I think while studying intermittently, I really didn't pay attention to the basics and I was just excited to solve questions. But I would never end up getting to solve the questions unless I, prep the basics first. That's one thing. Secondly, maintaining an error log is very, very, very important, which is something I again messed up in stage 2. And I had to go back and redo all my questions and make the error log again. Third is in terms of mocks, I really focused on analyzing my mocks, not just with what question went wrong, but with how much time I took per question, what was my rationale while reading the question itself. So I used to scribble on the paper while attempting the mock, only if I was confused or if I panicked during the question, so that I could go back and see where I panicked or why did this question make me feel a certain way. I realized that CR was a struggle point for me. So I went back and understood okay, which parts of the question I'm supposed to read first. So I dove deep into every single part to optimize every part to make it to that score. So that's definitely something I would say I did for the GMAT prep.
But did you prepare for the CAT at all?
No, I didn't. My plan was to prep, as in I had all my bets on ISB. And then I was hoping that would work out so I wouldn't have to prep for CAT. But my plan was to work maybe 1 or 2 years and then give my CAT because I wanted that work experience.
And coming to your stage 2 application and the interview experience, what are the important things over there? What do you think, really mattered, or anything that you'd like to discuss about the application and the interview experience?
This is after my GMAT, the essay and the interview, right?
Yes.
With the essay, I feel like those 300 words are really, really crucial to get your point across. And this is again something that Shruti and I disagreed on because I think what she understood, what I wanted to say, and what I actually wanted to say was very different. It's a very limited span of words you have to convince them that you are worth it. So it's like your one shot. There's no point sounding all, know it all or jargony. You just have to show what your true story is, which is something that I learned the hard way for sure. Shruti was like, your answers to AI, you need to change it. And I was so offended. I was like, there's no way. But in the end, it definitely made a difference. For me, extracurriculars is what stood out. So my personality was entirely that. My leadership experiences, how they've changed me today, why those connect to my future goal, which is consulting. It is your opportunity to convert those 300 words to say exactly what you want. Don't beat around the bush. Say what you want, say it directly. They are very smart. They know how to distinguish what someone else wrote for you or what you wrote. So please don't do anything of that sort. In terms of prep for the interview, there are situational questions, right? So I had a huge list, a huge Google Doc that's ran 25-30 pages about all experiences that I've done. There's in every single thing from college to work to, my extracurriculars, my internships. I had a short answer and a long answer, which is what Shruti told me. You should have a short answer prepared and a long answer if they're willing to listen to you ramble, which is again, you need to get that cue from them. You can't just keep going on and on. So I had questions that Shruti had provided, and I used to write short and long answers after everything. Keep revising them in my head, even when I'm going to sleep, even when I'm waking up, so that if anyone asks me any question, I will know the answer. I will know it in 3 crisp bullet points. I know what to say and I know its importance. You know your story best. The only thing you need to remember is to say it in a good way. Because your story is as interesting as it gets because it's as unique as you are. But the way to put it is what they really look at. My interview really knocked it out of the park for me because I'm not someone who's academically very, I have good grades, but I'm not school, exceptional, college topper, gold medalist types. And my GMAT score is good, but not amazing. My interview and how I portrayed myself is what really knocked it out of the park because I knew what to say. I had my answers at the tip of my tongue and I said it in a structured way. Everything had 1, 2, 3 points in order of importance. And I used to ask them if they wanted to hear more or something like that. So the interview was very smooth. In terms of prep for mock interviews, I used to listen to all the interviews that Shruti took. And I used to take notes about what I messed up and what I didn't mess up. And I used to try and make sure to integrate those in my next mock interview. I used to listen to every single mock interview and go back and do that as well. I can talk about my actual interview experience as well. So my panel was 2 ISB alums. And they were from the same sector that I wanted to be in. As in, this was what I was told, that if I had written consulting, I would get people who are already in the consulting background. Interviews can be of 2 types. You can either have an interviewer-led discussion or an interviewee-led discussion. I had an interviewee-led discussion because they used to have a very open-ended question and they used to stop talking and then you had to just, talk about whatever you can. So again, this is a very limited span of time. You have to put yourself at your best pedestal and, you have to speak in a way that you keep them captivated, but you also sell your point across. For example, the way I did this was, if I had a question, say, tell us about your work experience, what do you like, what do you don't like? I used to start with what I do, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and how what I don't like about it, or what I lack in at my current job, connects to why I need an MBA, and how that connects to why I need an MBA from ISB. This is a lot of thinking to do when you're talking continuously, and you have to structure your thoughts in your head. So that's definitely something that I would recommend preparing. Like, you should know how to catch that link and go from one question to the other if your panel is open-ended, which was what the case was for me. I had to really steer the discussion the way I wanted it, because when I steered it that way, then I was getting questions that I wanted, like, why I need an MBA, why consulting, why SB. And unless they knew the answer to those questions, they would really never see the point of why I actually want to get in. I used to run away from these questions, like why consulting, why MBA, why all of those things, but I had to really search and understand why I wanted that. But the panel was very conversational. It was a very conversational interview. They were very friendly, they were warm. It's mainly about your life and the decisions you've taken. So it's on you to, weave a story out of it and, put your best foot forward.
Thank you. What would be your insights for the future YLP applicants? They're starting now, they have their next round due in March. So stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, what are the important things to take care of?
I think the most important thing is to not lose focus in stage 2 prep. I was very close to giving up when my GMAT attempts didn't work out. And the thing is, you only see success stories of people on LinkedIn who say they got a 750 on their first attempt or something like that. But the ground reality is it's very hard. And not a lot of people write about their failures, which is before, you actually get there. But you have to be focused with your college, make sure your GPA is up, and also do your GMAT prep on the side, because that few months of struggle is always worth it at the end. Like, that GMAT score you can carry absolutely anywhere. So it's not just for ISB, but in general also it's a very good score to have. So I would say stay focused. And for the third part, I would just say be very thorough with your story. Like, I knew exactly whatever I had done in college tied up to what I wanted to do in the future. If that's not in the case, you can definitely pick up a few hobbies or a few other things, but ISB looks at your profile in a very holistic manner. So it's not just your academics or your certifications that count. It's also these things that make you unique. So I would say just try and become more, all-rounder of a person, pick up new hobbies, learn to talk about things, and just learn to present yourself in a better manner, because that's a skill that will not just help now, but a lot later in your career and, at ISB as well.
And it was a pleasure working with you. What would be, the feedback that you'd share for us or anybody who's planning to work for an MBA admissions consultant?
Shruti took me from like a 0 to a 9500 types, because I was very, very lost when it came to interview prep. So I knew that I did the studying and everything, that was fine. But first of all, I had no idea how to tackle the essay, because like I said, 300 words is a very small amount. And I didn't know how to mold those 300 words to tell my best story. So I think Shruti definitely helped that. And she has a very real perspective of what the AdCom wants, which I did not. If you speak to one ISB alum, again, it's not going to make much of a difference, because they know what they got in. But she knows the perspective of the AdCom in general, because she has that experience with her. So she knows what they're looking for, which is, I think, the most valuable, insight you can get. That was for the essays. So she helped me make sure to fit in my goals in a very concise manner and get what I wanted to put across. In terms of the interviews, I think she knew exactly where the questions were coming from. She knew, and she not just that, like, she also told me that these questions are not, set in stone. So I was prepared to mold their questions to take it in another sense and, understand what they're looking for and answer it in that way. Her mock interviews were very helpful. I feel like I improved by like at least 30-40% after each mock interview, because I knew where I was lacking, and she knew how to grill me to the point where I had to think like, oh God, I don't have an answer to this question. Like, I need to go back and work. So that was definitely helpful. So in general, I feel like if you had to look for an MBA admissions consultant, I picked Shruti because I didn't have a referral for Shruti, but I just saw her testimonials on her website. And I saw that she had other YLP admits that were really happy with it. So I took that. But so I feel like for the amount I paid, I got a lot of value from Shruti. So I definitely would recommend her for that.